Hey everyone, it's Zach with Palantir Research. Palantir released an interesting graph of their tiny, minuscule acceptance rate of applicants and compared it to Harvard and Stanford, who are in the mid 3% ranges, while Palantir is less than 1% at 0.7%. Random to me comparing them, but I get what they're going for here in that graphic. But I think this is a good opportunity then to revisit Glassdoor on if things have changed since my really old video on Palantir, what at the latest reviews say about today working there, considering they only get such a small percentage of applicants to actually get an offer. So at a high level first, I'd say things haven't changed too much from my original video, which is from April 10th of this year, being compared to present day August 17th. The reviews have increased from 611 to 666. Their rating has held steady though from a 4.1 stars to a 4.0 stars. Now, the recommend to a friend metric has dropped a little bit now from the 78% to 73% metric, with the 70% approval of Alex Karp dropping down to 66%. So I wouldn't say anything drastic has happened, but please note this is still anecdotal evidence and basically a free-for-all on Glassdoor, where some may be fake reviews inflating or deflating this number. And for context from back in April this year, the common themes from that last video was that there are very impressive folks at Palantir with great product and tech, but the sales culture is highly toxic, where you hear horror stories of accounts getting stolen from other sales folks or even their managers, and the leadership of their sales is basically bad and don't know what they're doing. And another theme, which is more neutral in my opinion, is that it's a workplace for self-starters and a flat organization where you kind of have to discover on your own where you can contribute. So if you're someone who needs direction, you'll most likely struggle in this kind of hierarchy. So I wanted to go over some newer reviews first that I found interesting and were detailed, showing what has or hasn't really changed at Palantir the last 4 months. So first touching on that acceptance rate. Right on Glassdoor, people already are giving the heads up the interview process is competitive and definitely not a company for everyone. You'll need to be a self-starter here, and this still holds true from my previous video. Now we've got a first positive review from a forward deployed engineer, or FDE, who's been employed for more than a year. The main themes are that you will be surrounded by the best and brightest, and you yourself should be growing, saying he's gained much more in the last 1.5 years at Palantir than the previous 10 years. On the financial side, he does note the vesting cycle appears to be well planned out to make people stay and be motivated to not just vest and rest. So hopefully that means the SBC happening is worth it for us shareholders, where it keeps the best and brightest and retains them while still being motivated and get the best output. The cons pointed out, though, is that Palantir is not for everyone, and is definitely more of an intense work environment that can wear you out than the typical corporations you'd work for, where maybe you're just a small cog in a machine. And from reading these, I'd probably not be cut out for it myself, hence why I'm a shareholder. And as a result of that too, being surrounded with much talent, it can be difficult to acclimate yourself, but you'll do fine eventually if you put the work in. And the advice to management is basically keep doing good even with the profitability in focus. Now, we get the dreaded sales side of Palantir here on the next review. Here's a juicy 2-star review from a person less than a year in sales. I'll have to break this up a little bit so it's long. So starting with the pros, one that is actually nice to hear is that they are acknowledging the impressive time to value and return on investment stories from clients, and they've never witnessed that anywhere else in their more than 10 years in sales. They continue to praise the product as well and the people who've built it and run it. So even though the next section is kind of doo-doo on the company, it's nice to see they have some positives here that reinforces at least the products of Palantir are strong. So first con for them is just the difference in values, which comes down to how Palantir runs their sales team. Account ownership is a major issue. They point out that it swings from person to person in such a short turnaround time because management believes it should be closed super quick. And they point out this creates so much instability to the sales staff and infighting, and basically leads to a bad environment where people are gone within the first 6 months. And another issue, which was pointed out in my first video, is bonuses. There appears to be a delay of bonuses or extra scrutiny that is enough to create contempt by the sales team, where they don't get paid or paid very late or fought every step of the way of getting credit and ultimately getting the bonus if it's even given out. So basically this person points out Palantir has a bad sales structure and they are not set up to succeed. And of course, on top of that, you're not going to get paid for it well because you're not going to get the credit. And then we've got another quick low rating here. This is from a deployment strategist. I wanted to include this one because deployment strategists are those who teach clients and onboard clients to getting acclimated with the system and products of Palantir. The pros are good people as usual, but the cons are a little bit different here, stating the good people are gone now and being replaced by these B-tier management consultants. And then there's also bad work-life balance from projects getting rolled out. And what's important to investors, the prospects for new businesses are actually getting weaker. So this really caught my eye on the cons. If the front line is seeing weakness in business and not this narrative AIP flying off the shelves and people wanting to get this implemented at their own businesses so quickly, obviously it's still a single Glassdoor review, and this one's in Washington, D.C., so maybe it is local to that market, but something to keep in mind here as an investor. Next, another 2-star review from a forward deployed engineer. So I wanted to provide that contrast here to the first review that was a good one, that this person is saying most of the 5-star reviews are fake. But as such, Palantir is still a good place for your resume with strong employees that seem to impress everyone. But the cons here are not surprising from what we were hearing from sales, but for the engineering side, it does make me want to take a look closer. They're saying it's chaotic at a project and company level here. So it's not saying it's just one or the other. It's actually the whole company and you're just going to have a hectic life. This can be due to scaling of their business and high expectations of the company from the outside, like us investors, but who knows? And they also point out the flat organization is a tough environment for some folks where they really need to make their own work and value in order to stand out. They've only been here for a year as well, like that first forward deployed engineer, so we have two sides of the coin here from engineers on the difficulty of working at Palantir. Now, I saved the best for last or the worst for last. This is another salesperson, but they titled their review as Absolute Hell for Salespeople. Just like the other salesperson though, the product appears to be the best and time to value for clients is amazing. So the product is really speaking for itself even to non-technical folks. But the cons continue with the culture. Zero sales background and ignorance of enterprise sales from the leadership. More stories of accounts taken away quickly when the ball isn't rolling. The sales cycle is definitely longer typically for enterprise software. So if this 30-day turnaround is true, honestly, I think that is kind of setting up the sales folks to fail. What I think is interesting here is in their description of the workplace environment, though. They say it's a fear-based culture where you feel like you'll lose your job everywhere, and that salespeople get fired before any vesting or commissions happen. So their advice to management is basically fix sales, fix the incentives, the metrics that measure their success, and creating an environment that actually understands the sales process and what it takes for these enterprise customers to sign on. And a little note, too, is that this fear is so strong that folks do not want to enter info about their sales process into their CRM system, because I'm thinking it probably starts the 30-day clock and they really wanted to avoid that until they're sure that they can at least get close to closing a deal, because they don't want someone to swoop in and steal it from them or get it reassigned. So a lot of negative reviews around the sales and cultural aspect. This is to be expected a little bit too when an environment prides itself on being intense in the way of creating solutions and engineering that actually work. So of course there was some pros to that. So the focus now is so strong on product still and results that it really grinds on the people, especially the newer ones, who may not have joined fully expecting what the culture is like. And remember, the longest and loudest reviews are those that do get the attention. That's just something to keep in mind. Remember, they still have their 4-star ratings. So even if they are fake reviews on both the positive and negative end, then we'll just have to see over time if things actually change on these averages. Like Yelp, usually people who are the loudest are usually the most negative also, but it also gets the most interest from people because they want to know what's wrong. Hence why I did cover them here. So I'm not trying to portray Palantir as bad. Every organization does have their weaknesses and there are a ton of horrible ones out there, but I just wanted to show these kind of reviews are still popping up for Palantir. And in comparison to my first video, things seem to be running the same, honestly. It doesn't look like it's gotten better or worse per se, at least anecdotally. So there's a strong product, crap sales system, but we did get those little nuggets on the insider perspective. As an investor, I'm paying attention to the quarterly reports, of course, on those customer numbers, but if the product is as useful as folks are describing, then at least we have something here and something special. I'd rather fix a sales team still than fix the products my whole organization is centered around and the main reason you have a reason to exist and actually bring value to the marketplace. So what are your thoughts on this? I know there was a ton of information with different perspectives. Are you surprised by the culture described by these employees? Let me know below and I'll see you in the next video.